Hey, it's Mike here, and today, top 5 best foods for fitness or exercise or getting back into exercising after way too long. Yes, this is my second video listing 5 things in a row. That is okay, but I really wanted to get into this topic for many reasons, including how by now some people have just been completely destroyed by the quarantine, distancing, sedentary lifestyle. Some people have gone and made entire home gyms out of like concrete in buckets and scrap metal. And most of us haven't done that, and most of us haven't been squatting boxes of dates in preparation for this for years. No, we need some extra motivation, and some people get their motivation from science, like me. So these are all going to be scientifically backed, of course, like all of my other videos. And this is especially important because if somebody were to just search best foods for exercise into Google, the first food that Google shows you is chocolate milk. Tell me, Google, is it that statistically significant testosterone drop that can be observed after drinking cow's milk, or is it the refined sugar that is going to lead to a blood sugar crash? Which one is it? Anyway, my gym closed months ago and it completely destroyed me, messed up my routine. I tried doing some stuff at home, but I just couldn't keep it up. But I'm gonna get back on the wagon. I'm committed to do it. I'm gonna do it with the help of this new vegan fitness bundle. It's now about $2,500 in value with over 30 ebooks and programs for just 49 bucks. This includes my cookbook and the nutrition guide of the super buff Misha Janiak, and then it also has fitness programs like the Twins booty building guide, so you can build your booty without eating the booties of animals. They even plant one tree for every order, which is awesome, and I will have my link down below, which definitely supports me and other vegans a lot. And now, back to the science. To set a little foundation really quick to make the research more digestible, it's important to note that while exercise pretty much has a good effect across the board, there are some short-term negative effects that can be mitigated, which is awesome, and one of them is oxidative stress from your metabolism when you exercise. Normally, your metabolism burns that energy and it creates oxidative stress as it is, and then you accelerate that, ramp it up by exercising, especially cardio exercise. This can result in DNA damage. From this study, quote, "A substantial increase in DNA damage occurs immediately following acute aerobic exercise. This increase remains significant between 2 hours and 1 day, but not within 5 to 28 days post-exercise. So it can last up to 4 days in certain subjects." And then there's also delayed onset muscle soreness. That soreness you're familiar with, maybe 24 to 48 hours after working out. And no, contrary to popular belief, it is not from lactic acid buildup. You know, it's probably those microscopic tears that happen when you stress your muscles and then your body's subsequent inflammation response that actually causes the pain. I wrote a note about the microscopic tears and I read it back. Microscopic tears. Not everybody cries visible tears. All right, with oxidative stress and inflammation in mind, let's start talking about some foods. And this isn't gonna be part of the list because it would be on every single list. It was on my last list. It's just too good, and that is turmeric. But I still should mention that from this review, turmeric appears to modulate that inflammation after exercise, and if you watch my last video, you also know it's made more absorbable by pepper, the active ingredient in pepper at least, and so this study combined the active ingredients of both pepper and turmeric and found some effects, including a slightly better sprint power, but honestly, it used a 90% confidence interval. I feel like it should be a 95% confidence interval, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, turmeric's amazing, and it should be on every list, but honorable mention for it. But let's get to number 1. The official number 1 is watercress. For those that don't know, this is watercress. It's a very beautiful plant. A long time ago, I briefly mentioned this study on watercress and exercise-induced oxidative stress and DNA damage, but this time we're gonna go a little bit deeper. What they did is they had their placebo/control groups, and then they had 2 groups of watercress people, one that consumed watercress 2 hours before exercise and one that ate it on an ongoing basis. So they ate 85 grams of raw watercress 2 hours before exercise or just chronically for 8 weeks. We're talking about a plant. I just said chronic. Feel free to make your own joke in the comments. Here's a chart of the results showing just the control group's oxidative stress level at rest. And now during exercise, as you can see, it goes up significantly. And then you have the short and long-term watercress people at rest. And then after exercise, they actually saw a drop in oxidative stress compared to rest. So it's like exercise actually activates the full potential of the plant. Now for the DNA damage part, which hasn't been appropriately visualized yet, it's in a table in there when it really should have been a chart, so I tediously made a little chart of it. To keep it simple, we just looked at the people who ate at 2 hours before exercise. They weren't statistically significantly different than the control group at start at 6.8 and 5.8, but then after exercise, the control group went up to 15.6, while the Watercress group stayed around 7.5. That is incredible if you care about your DNA. They say this protective effect is likely due to beta-carotene and other good plant compounds. And they conclude, quote, the prophylactic effect of watercress may be due in part to the high concentration of antioxidants or other cytoprotective compounds. Fun word. So basically, watercress is incredible. The question is, if we took 85 grams of any raw green that had significant nutrition, not iceberg lettuce, would we have a similar effect? We'd have to look at it. Anyway, on to number 2, which is ginger. First, it's important to note that post-exercise inflammation can come in the form of cytokines. Yes, the same cytokines that caused that cytokine storm in COVID, which can be deadly. Well, this study took people, split them into 2 groups, had a ginger group that had half a gram of ginger, and then they measured that post-exercise inflammatory response, and it turned out that the ginger group had a lower inflammatory cytokine response. However, to see a difference, you had to be taking ginger for several weeks, and this might come down to dosage because they were looking at, again, half a gram of ginger here, but it seems like the best doses are up higher, around 1.5 or 2 grams in a day. That brings me to this study on muscle pain after exercise that gave people 2 grams of ginger. The result, the ginger reduced the post-exercise muscle pain of the subjects by about 1/4, regardless of whether it was raw ginger or dry ginger. However, moving on to this next study, which did not find a decrease in muscle pain, maybe it had to do with how intensely they worked out, but they did find other benefits. They found an increased regaining of muscle strength after strenuous exercise from ginger, and that is pretty incredible. And thinking about this, zooming out, I mean, we're talking about this little plant, well, probably not that little, but this little root that we pull out and then we ground it up or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get better muscle strength recovery. Like, plants are incredible. Moving on to the next one, which is, you knew it was coming. Some of you knew it was coming, and that is beets. Some of you, but not all of you, probably knew that athletes can dope using beets. The nitrates in beets can increase the oxygen utilization of the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. One quote I have not shared on here, which is cool, from these researchers, they put it like this, quote, dietary nitrate supplementation lowers the oxygen cost of human exercise. Pretty badass. Of course, that's going to result in better athletic performance. As this review mentions, various time trial studies showed that beet juice made people faster. In other words, it's ergogenic, or just makes athletic performance better. Fancy word. Now to one of my all-time favorite studies where they gave beet juice to free divers, people that go underwater and hold their breath, and measured how long they could hold their breath, with and without it. They gave people 2.5 ounces or 70 milliliters of beet juice. They waited over 2 hours, and then they held their breath, and the result was that the beet juice group could hold their breath 11% longer, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in athletic terms, a second can make all the difference. But I'm always trying to give you guys new information, and what I have never mentioned from that study is that they did a pre-test where they held their breath and they measured their blood oxygen. And as you can see from this chart, during that 3-minute breath hold, the beet group simply had higher oxygen levels. They were utilizing oxygen more efficiently. And I do want to mention that some dietary nitrate studies have not found benefits, and this might be due to that period that it takes your body to absorb the actual nitrates and utilize them. So obviously you're eating it, it's going down, you have to digest it, and that again is probably over 2 hours. And it is the case that other nitrate-rich foods like dark leafy greens should have these positive effects as well. So if you don't like beets, you can still beat your personal best. Now for the next one, number 4, berries. Yeah, I know it's kind of cheating to just throw them all into one, but honestly, I didn't want to have multiple berry categories, and yeah, there are different berries, but this is just the best way to do it, trust me. Let's be honest, after all this quarantining crap, some of us are probably in like the worst shape we've been in a long time, and so we need any help we can get getting into it. And so it's good to know that even in people who are trying to exercise after heart failure, Hawthorn berries were able to increase the amount of time that they were able to exercise by about 40 seconds, and also decrease the amount of time that they had labored breathing by about 11%. So if it can work for people with heart failure, it can work for you. No excuses, get some Hawthorn berries or just exercise. And then we also have blueberries, who are another champion that could probably be on every single list that I make. And from this study, quote, VO2 max and exercise performance time were increased in the blueberry supplementation period. Just call it the blueberry eating period. And for those that don't know, again, VO2 max is the amount of oxygen that somebody can utilize during super intense exercise. And now onto this study about blueberries and muscle damage, which, quote, demonstrates that the ingestion of a blueberry smoothie prior to and after eccentric exercise-induced muscle damage accelerates recovery of muscle peak isometric strength. Again, makes you stronger again faster. Next, we have a very interesting study on muscle damage and tart cherry juice. They had a placebo group that was given fake AF cherry juice and a group that was given 12 ounces of real tart cherry juice. And the results were a moderate decrease in muscle soreness in the tart cherry group. But what is very interesting, especially for people who want to be exercising day after day and not taking those big breaks, well, from this chart, you can see that the cherry group again decreased that loss of strength the next day by quite a bit, so you're not as weak the next day. Another interesting one, which perhaps is a marker of inflammation, is range of motion, and the cherry group lost less range of motion in their bicep than the placebo group. So a lot of benefits here. However, this study was funded by the cherry industry. However, it was a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, so at least they had a layer of bias that couldn't get in there. Double-blind, of course, means that neither the participant or the researcher knows which participant is getting the real treatment or the placebo. Anyway, on to the next cherry study. This one was on muscle pain and running. They divided people into two groups as normal. Both of them were supposed to run 26 kilometers in 24 hours. One group got the 12 ounces of cherry juice, and the results were that the cherry group reported a significantly smaller increase in pain compared to the placebo group. We're talking about a third the amount of increased pain. All right, now for number 5, Popeye already knows which one this is, and it's of course spinach. Here's a study that put participants' muscles under a lot of stress and then measured the oxidative stress afterwards of people who did or didn't get spinach. And because nutritionfacts.org and Dr. Greger have been such a help in making this video, major thanks to them, I'll let Dr. Greger explain the chart here.
Here's what happens when you run a half marathon without spinach. A big spike in oxidative stress, blood malondialdehyde levels that stays up hours or even days later. In the spinach group, the before and after 2 weeks of spinach doesn't seem to make much of a difference, but put the body under pressure, and then you can really see the difference. Your body is better able to deal with the stress.
Spinach also reduced muscle damage, as shown by creatine kinase, which is supposed to be in your muscle, but when it gets damaged, makes its way out of your muscles into your blood. And well, here is the control group, and bam, massive increase in creatine kinase. But the spinach group, you're actually looking at blunted by almost half. Now, I want to mention that these 5 foods I've been talking about are just the ones that have been studied for these particular things. Imagine all of the plants that have all of the amazing effects that haven't been studied, and that is why a great strategy is to eat a whole food, plant-based diet, because you'll get all these amazing plants all the time and hurt less animals. And if you are interested in that vegan fitness bundle, there's so many amazing people that I didn't mention and that I don't even have time to mention. I mean, we have Derek Simnett in there, we have Chef Gwelly, we have Hench Herbivore Vegans, Mark Loves Life, who's super jacked, and on and on and on. Anyway, if you get this, obviously you're supporting vegans, then also by investing in it, you're gonna have some extra motivation to actually get started. I know how my brain works, at least. Anyway, linked below. Feel free to like and subscribe if you like this, if you learned anything, if there are any other awesome foods that I didn't mention that have amazing scientifically backed effects, let me know. Someone in the last video mentioned dehydration, which was a great food hack that I did not mention in my 5. So thanks for that comment, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.